Football is awesome. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome back to Friday Night Roots. I'm your host, Justin Thomas, and holy shit, do we have a good one for you guys. In this video, I'm planning to kind of react to the Ravens Steelers, Chargers Texans game, and holy shit, it's going to be exciting. I'm going to start with Ravens Steelers just because I feel like there just wasn't as much that went on. I mean, still a great football game, and so let's just jump right into it. Let's start with Ravens Steelers. Holy shit. I mean, nothing too surprising, but man, did we see some ugly football from the Steelers. Steelers fall 14-28 to the Baltimore Ravens, and just wow. So basically, this game was crazy. It kind of started with, of course, Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's such a dynamic runner. He is a dump truck, and he did not disappoint. Also, Lamar Jackson, oh my gosh, amazing. Absolutely amazing. He played flawless. I mean, he just looked so comfortable in the pocket. He made fantastic throws, didn't mess up at all. He just looked so good. What was interesting, there was a moment in the game where the Steelers had the ball, and it was 4th and inches, and I believe it was towards the end of the first quarter. And I don't know. I can't help but feel like in that moment that I would have gone for it. And I kind of had a moment of like, I understand why they didn't. This game was still within reach, but you were right there. You were right fucking there, man. Just 4th and inches. I just feel like I would have gone for it, but what do I know? I just can't help but feel like that was a missed opportunity to keep the Steelers' momentum going. Anywho, and then I saw that, as the game went on, we saw a couple packages with Fields, which I thought was interesting. They were really hyping it up before the game, so I kind of expected to see more Fields, but I mean, it just didn't happen. I thought he was good. His stats weren't great. I think he had the first play, he kind of did a swing bootleg out to the right that, Baltimore just gave him nothing. And then there was a couple times in there where I think they had a play action RPO run play or something for him, but just didn't look that great. I was just kind of disappointed with how much they were hyping him up. I was expecting to see more. And then just following that, man, just Lamar looked so good. He looked so comfortable, just didn't even have a stress or a worry. He was just out there having fun playing ball. So, and kind of right towards the end of, or the middle of the second quarter, I'd say the Steelers just looked maxed out, man. Their defense had been on the field the whole time. They looked exhausted. They looked tired. It just looks like it wasn't going to go their way. But honestly, at that point, I was scrolling Twitter, and I thought, man, like they should really consider putting in Fields. Why not? I mean, why not give the guy a shot? I mean, Russ is just the chemistry, the way he was playing. I think he got it together there closer to the end, but I'd put in Fields more. Let's see what he can do, honestly. And then, surprisingly, 8 minutes into the third, Wilson, hits Van Jefferson in the end zone. So that was kind of a little spark. It was kind of, I'd just say it was a blown coverage, honestly, by the Ravens. Also, the Ravens definitely got a little lazy there. Once they kind of saw the end of the tunnel. So don't blame them there. But the Steelers had absolutely no defensive presence tonight. Zero. None. I mean, TJ Watt and then Hayward, it looked like they were both getting up slow. They were injured a few times. It was just, frankly, quite embarrassing. Zero defensive presence for the Steelers, and for being such a known as a smash mouth program, I just thought they just didn't do well. They sucked, and sorry to put it that way, but they sucked. And granted, the offense wasn't doing their defense any fucking favors, but not good. And of course, I can't emphasize it enough. I'm going to probably say it 4 more times. Derrick Henry and that Ravens O-line. Holy shit, they kicked ass. That was amazing. They owned the line of scrimmage the whole game, didn't have any problems. TJ Watt and Hayward just looked like high school players out there. They just weren't. TJ Watt also was it felt like he was, every time they ran an RPO or a read option, I mean, he was just biting on that fake. He had 0 contain tonight, fucking 0, and that really hurt them. And then, of course, kind of towards the end of the game, the Steelers, hit Pickens for a deep ball and, kind of bring the game back closer, kind of bring the game back in closer, like they actually have a shot. Down 2 touchdowns. They still had, I think, like 8 minutes left in the third. But even then, by the time the end of the third quarter, they had only a 94%, or the Ravens had a 94% chance to win. I mean, they were really going to need a miracle in order to change that. So, ultimately, it comes down to the Steelers just not being able to stop the Ravens. They couldn't manage it. They couldn't do it. It was just too hard for them. And like I said, defensive line presence just wasn't there. I did notice something kind of towards the end of the game, though, too. Well, I guess I noticed it really early. There was a stretch there. I think Lamar had 8 runs in a row. And I just thought that was ridiculous. And I'm not trying to jump all over Todd Monken, but I honestly feel like they ran the ball a little too much with Lamar, given that it's a first-round wildcard playoff game. And I'm not saying that it didn't benefit them. It absolutely helped them get momentum in a lot of key situations. I just think, you got to be careful with Lamar. It's January. We kind of all knew they could beat this team without problem, but we'll just kind of have to see if Lamar can stay healthy and ultimately not be a Lamar and turn into a pumpkin sometime in January and win. So, overall was a fantastic game. Steelers season ends, Ravens move on, all the exciting stuff. What I did, look up towards the end of the game is I wanted to know who the key free agents for the Steelers are. It was actually pretty baffling, who they're going to have up, hitting free agency. Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, Najee Harris, Dante Jackson, Mike Williams, Van Jefferson, Cameron Sutton, C.J. Henderson, all are going to be free agents. So it'll be interesting what the Steelers GM decides to do there. We all assume Russ is coming back. Don't know what the future holds for Fields, but I guess we'll find that out. Overall, Russ ended the game 20 for 29, 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He had 4 sacks. He still had 120 rating, not the worst in the world. I think he could have done way better, but yeah. And then Lamar, 16 for 21, 175, 2 touchdowns. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and then just 1 sack on 10 dropbacks. His rating was 132. It felt like every time Lamar dropped back, he was throwing laser beams. He just didn't miss. He didn't throw too many deep balls tonight, but it didn't matter. Didn't need it. Lamar looked like Lamar as always. And then of course, it's, to kind of close it out, Derrick Henry. Wow. Derrick Henry is a fucking dump truck. Looked exactly as advertised. This has got to be the best season of his career, and I can't imagine he's not feeling the most energized this year compared, in his career, just given that, his situation away from the Titans. So 26 carries, 186 yards, averaging 17.2, 2 touchdowns, and the longest rush was 44 yards. What an outstanding night for Derrick Henry. Holy shit, Derrick Henry is going to be a force to be reckoned with. I'm just so shocked that I have all the other NFL teams let him go to the Ravens, because that's gonna be a problem. Total yards, Pittsburgh ended up with 280 offensive yards. Baltimore ended up with 464. Just double. I mean, more than it just wasn't close, unfortunately. What's interesting about this matchup though is there were no turnovers, and that did surprise me. I assumed Russell Wilson was going to end up throwing an interception at some point, but he didn't. Pickens looked like shit. Just same old, no chemistry with Russ, couldn't get open, struggled with his hands. I mean, he caught some good ones, but just not the George Pickens as advertised as I was hoping for. First downs, Pittsburgh 11, Baltimore 29. Just not fair in that regard. You can't win games like that. I mean, you just can't win games like that. And then, of course, the time of possession, Pittsburgh 20 minutes, and then Baltimore 39 minutes, almost 40 minutes, so almost double. And that's exactly how this game played out. It's exactly how the score showed. Overall, I thought it was a super fun and exciting game, especially towards the end when kind of Russ built a comeback. But congratulations to the Baltimore Ravens. When it came to, unfortunately, when it came to my prediction, I think I predicted 24-17 Ravens, but that, the game ended 28-14. So pretty close, but just wasn't where it needed to be. All right. Let's jump onto the Chargers-Texans game, the most exciting game of the day. Holy shit. That is why we love football, baby. That is why we love football. What an outstanding fucking game to watch. It was like just like watching a shit sandwich without the bread. It was all over the place. It was wow, what a fucking crazy game. Texans end up pulling away very far at the end, 32-12 Texans. And I was wrong. My prediction, I had LA 30, Texans 17. But that's why we love football. Any given Sunday, man, was that a fantastic game. I'm still just super stoked. That was the first game of the weekend. Holy shit. I mean, I'm just blown away. To start the game, the Chargers just couldn't score. They got to the red zone twice and just couldn't fucking score, and that's going to be a problem. You can't get. I was watching the game with my roommate, and he's sitting there. I'm going, listen, that's two opportunities that the Chargers just missed. They could be up 2 touchdowns, but instead, CJ all through the first half, towards the second end of the first half, I'm like, man, the Chargers leaving this door wide open. They got to close the door. Couldn't do it. They just kept kicking field goals. And then the Texans on this, throw, fumble, immediately give it back to the Chargers. Chargers then, kick the second field goal. And then let's talk about Will Anderson Jr.'s impact. He had a few sacks, and he was putting pressure on Herbert all night. He was causing havoc in the run game. And then, of course, Will Dissly had a bat or a ball go straight through his hands and end up getting intercepted. He had a couple drops, big drops that were just tragic for the Chargers, that the Chargers really needed. And then, ultimately on the opposite end, I mean, the protection for CJ was, oh my God, it was terrible. CJ just looked like he had no time. He was pressured, but unfortunately the Chargers didn't capitalize on those 2 red zones, and they allowed CJ to find his rhythm, and seemed like Justin Herbert just couldn't get the rhythm, and that was the problem for Justin Herbert. So terrible protection for CJ. And then we had the blocked punt, and then, this one doesn't bother me as much, but when the Texans blocked the punt, and then the Texans player watched the ball just keep rolling backwards and backwards, I don't blame him, because if he ended up trying to jump on that ball and missing it, obviously that could be risky, because it could take a weird bounce and end up back in the Chargers' hands. But I still think he could have landed on it and taken that punt way closer, but not the biggest thing in the world, just a little annoyance I had. CJ also threw a random ass moonball interception to Leonard. I don't know where he was going with that or what he was thinking. It looked like he was trying to get it out of bounds, but it just fucking wasn't. And Leonard just made an outstanding catch, kept it, landed on his 2 feet, kept it in bounds, which, good for Leonard. I don't know. Just the CJ moonball, the Justin Herbert moonball today. Holy shit. It was like watching 2 high school, quarterbacks just throw darts. It's like, they were having a hold my beer, let's see who could throw the worst pass contest today. It was fucking terrible. The Texans ended up intercepting the ball back by Lassiter. Lassiter ended up catching it. Like I said, bullshit football. It was terrible football, but it was also exciting football. So, and then CJ made an epic play to Hutchinson right before the half, which was so awesome. Threw it downfield, and then CJ ended up finding Nico Collins at the back of the end zone. And then this is the turning point. This is where the momentum shifts. This is where the Chargers start to really struggle. And I just felt like the Chargers offense just had no identity. They had no Harbaughism going today, and it ultimately led to their demise. Then CJ also had that long run. And then right at the end there, CJ almost, or in the middle, I think third quarter, CJ almost threw an interception, but they ended up reversing it, and because they said he didn't survive the ground. But if you ask me, I think he did survive the ground. I can't show it for copyright reasons, but if you look, he has his knuckles holding the ball on the way down. It's not against the rules in the NFL to touch the ground. For the ball to touch the ground, you just have to maintain possession and survive the ground. They say he didn't. I say he maybe did, but no, he did. I think he did, but what do I know? I'm sure if you wanted to pick hairs, it was so close that you're not going to be able to have a definitive answer given the camera angles available. So, and then Herbert threw another pick six to Murray. It was a long night. It was a long night for Herbert, and like I said, no identity, couldn't get comfortable. And then Stingley Jr. gets that interception on Dissly from the one that goes like right through his hands. So that was crazy. And then, at that time I think there was like 2 minutes left in the third, and I had written down upset on my notes, upset. And it was 12-23, and I just saw the writing on the wall at that point. And I think the Chargers did too. It ultimately, put them in a bad place mentally. And then, Herbert did have a long pass to Ladd McConkey, deep. But then afterwards, they score this crazy awesome touchdown. We could talk about Ladd in a second, but they score this crazy awesome touchdown to Ladd. They miss the field goal. The field goal gets blocked in return for 2 points. So then the score goes from 12-23 to 12-25. you just, in these playoff games, special teams is so important. You just can't you just can't do that. And then following that, Joe Mixon, once that happened, Joe Mixon started to get his groove. And, like I said in my previous video, Mixon, as he's a little bit older, maybe not as fast, but he's one of the very few running backs I like, because he runs downhill. He runs with his head first and a lead helmet, and he's going to put his nose in there and run downhill, not side to side. And then Stingley Jr. had just an absolutely fantastic game. 2 interceptions. Houston overall had 4 interceptions for the game. Justin Herbert looked uncomfortable. He ended up going 14 for 32, 242 yards, 1 touchdown, 4 interceptions, 4 sacks, had a QBR of 13. My God, how disappointing. How fucking... I remember they put up the graphic at halftime, and he was 8 for 20, 79 yards. Holy shit, Justin. I mean, listen, man, like... the Chargers just did what the Chargers do. Last time they lost that huge game in the playoff round to the Jaguars, and they came back on them like 30 fucking points. You just can't let that happen. Herbert is going to have the January curse pretty soon if he doesn't figure it out. CJ, on the other hand, CJ started really slow, and I wrote down at one point that the Texans looked like their offense was just not doing well. CJ ended up 22 for 33, 282 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and a QBR of 64. So, I mean, middle of the pack stat-wise, but he got it done. And ultimately, when they needed it, he made the completions, and he won the game. So you can't take that away from him. I thought CJ looked like shit. I thought Herbert looked like shit. I thought it was just bad football today all around from the QBs and the lines. I thought the defenses played fantastic. What a defensive day today. Harbaugh's defense looked good. D'Amico Ryan's defense looked good. And then, of course, I have to highlight them, even though they lost, because no one else had outstanding stats that excited me other than Ladd. Ladd McConkey set a record for the most amount of receiving yards by a rookie wide receiver in a playoff game. He ended up with 9 catches, 197 yards. He averaged 21 yards a catch. He had 1 touchdown and that long play was 86 yards, and then 14 targets, so a 9 out of 14. Yeah, just bullshit football by those two. It was super fun to watch, and I had a great time watching it. But God, they played. It was just like these kids slinging it, and it not in a good way either. But defenses played fantastic. Definitely, both of those defenses looked great. D'Amico Ryan's defense wins championships. The old saying. Maybe you can win it the other way. Everyone says this is an offensive league now. Who knows? Maybe they can come back and win it on the defensive side of the ball. Total yards, Chargers 261, Texans 426, basically doubled it. Turnovers, Chargers 4, Texans 3. That's why it was such an exciting game, and what made it exciting, but also made it a bullshit football. So super fun. I loved it. Time of possession, 25 Chargers, 25 minutes Chargers, Texans 34. Just completely outplayed in that regard. There's just nothing you can do, right? So anyway, it was super awesome first day of Wildcard. I had such a good time, and I can't wait for tomorrow's games. Congratulations to ultimately to the Ravens and the Texans. They'll be moving on the AFC side. So let me before we close out today, I want to do my picks for the games tomorrow. So the picks for the games tomorrow, there's 3 games tomorrow morning, evening, and afternoon. We got Broncos Bills. This is the early game. I'm thinking 28-20 Bills. As much as I really like Bo Nix and I really like the Sean Payton duo, ultimately Josh Allen, who is carrying a franchise, I get it, but I just think he's going to be too good. I think the Bills defense is going to cover. I think they're just going to be way better. Ultimately, though, I do have this being the closest game this weekend. I think the Broncos can pull it out. If the Broncos defense can contain Josh Allen and Bo Nix does what he does, throws his bombs and completes his passes, I think they really have a shot. Packers Eagles. This is also going to be, I think, a close one, given the fact that Jalen's coming off that concussion. I got Eagles for the Eagles-Packers game. I got Eagles 21-17, which is also going to be a close game. I just think, like I said, with Jalen coming off that concussion, I'm not sure how he's going to do. Like I said in my previous video, I think they should give him some dink and dunks, get him warmed up, and then ultimately see how he does. So I got Eagles 21-17. The Eagles can do some weird shit when they get behind or they get into a funk. Sirianni isn't the most let's say grounded individual based on what I've seen, so we'll see how that goes. And then Commanders versus Bucks. I got Commanders 30-17. I love the Bucks. I love Baker Mayfield. I love Mike Evans. I just think that the Commanders, once Jaden Daniels gets on a groove, man, he's like an immovable force. You're just not going to slow him down. You can try to slow him down, but right when you think you got him, he hits a wicked sidearm underneath you, and you're fucked. So I as much as I love, like I said, the Bucks, and who knows, maybe it's in a more exciting game than I think. I think it'll be like maybe one of those close at halftime things, and then if the Commanders get going and the Commanders get hot, Commanders defense stays strong. I just don't think the Bucks have the weapons to overcome them. So anyway, super excited for tomorrow. I'll also be posting a reaction video tomorrow to those 3 games. So super pumped to do that video for you guys. And as always, let's talk some ball. Love ya.